Hello, everybody. Thanks for participating. Uh, it seems it seems like the wrong time to be talking about basketball, but I know that's your job and my job to report on it. But with what's going on in our society, it seems like this shouldn't be our focus. With George Floyd's tragedy, I think it's been an awakening for our society, and my hope is that everybody decides to engage at a deeper level, at a meaningful level, and on a continuous level. I don't think this gap will be bridged by a panel here or there, although those things help. I think it's going to require, it's going to take a long time, but it's going to be meaningful work and gratifying work when we make this part of our everyday, working towards being better people, more accepting people, more open, better listeners, and amongst everything that's going on in our society, I hope sports can heal. One of my favorite parts of sports is it's colorblind. It's a meritocracy of sorts. You don't get judged by how you look; you get judged by how you perform. And unfortunately, our society doesn't reflect that as much as we'd like. So, in times like this, I am thankful to be in sports. Thankful to know many of you that come from all different backgrounds and look all different ways. I love that part of my life, my vocation, that we are all different. And whether it's media, players, ownership, my scouts, my front office, our coaching staff, I love that uniqueness of our profession, that it's a great blend of society. I wish that upon more people because I think that's also part of the healing as well, is getting to know each other better. So with that being said, happy to answer any questions about what's transpired in the last week as far as the season, questions as far as it affects the Warriors, and anything else you might want to know.
Yeah, Bob, it's Anthony Slater. How are you doing?
Sorry about the jackhammering in the background too. I can't. They're cleaning up my street, so if you hear that, I apologize.
What do you may not know all the specifics, but what's ahead for you guys this summer? There's been chatter about maybe a summer league, maybe mini camp. Like, do you have anything finalized or close to finalization in the coming months?
I hope so. The league has been in discussions with the union. I think their first order of business was to resolve the playoffs, which they've done, and now it'll be discussion around the teams that aren't participating in Orlando. Obviously, we're one of them. I believe we'll have some kind of resolution in the near term. I think they are focused on it, but it requires more conversation with the union. I'm sure the league will solicit our input on those matters. I think there'll be some form where we'll hopefully be allowed to convene. I think the league's open to that, but again, it's still in discussion. So if we had this call 2 weeks from now, I think I'd be able to answer that question, or you may know it before me sometimes. But right now, it's looking like we'll have some answer, but I don't have one.
Do you have any preference on like a summer league, or would you prefer to keep the team together mini camp stuff?
I don't know, Anthony. I'd like to see I don't know. It depends on what they look like. It depends on how they're presented. And again, it depends on what the players want. I don't think it depends on and they'll collaborate, I believe, through their union. Some form of something is what we're hoping for, and I think we'll get in some capacity. But as far as what it'll exactly look like, I'm not sure what we're choosing from at this point. So I don't know what to prioritize.
Bob, it's Kareth Burke. As you think about player development for this summer, what are your concerns or hopes? If the last game you played was in March and then potentially not playing a game until December or whenever the league gets going for next season. So hopes and concerns for player development this summer.
My hope, Kareth, is that we have an opportunity, hopefully we will, to get together and coach, compete a little bit internally. And what we'd like to get done is develop everybody, continue. I mean, there's guys that are on our team, as you well know, that are veterans that haven't gotten to play that much. We haven't played very much. At least what we'd like to have is more time with the group that we've put together, and even behind closed doors, get some interaction there. Guys get to know each other. This period can be productive. The young guys, I think, obviously, as everyone are kind of in there working a little bit now. But the goal would be individually and collectively, we all get better. This has been a nice time organizationally to evaluate ourselves, whether that's me, our processes in the front office, whether it's coaching staff. Steve and I have had a lot of good discussions about how we want to go forward with our team, with our players, and developing plans. And so my hope or goal would be that in 3 or 4 months, or whenever the next season starts, we've had time and we've properly put in place plans for everybody that is on our roster, including Steph Curry. What do we expect of him, Klay, Draymond, Andrew, all these guys together, and see what that looks like.
Bob, it's Nick Friedel. As far as Klay is concerned, is Klay back to 100% now?
I don't know. I think we got to take a look at him when we see him. And, there's different versions of 100%. 100% for you or I to walk around the street is not 100% of an NBA basketball player playing basketball. So until we kind of test him and see him, and you start in 1-on-1 and then 2-on-2, and obviously the pandemic has not allowed him that opportunity to do those type of things. So we'll take, there's no rush, clearly. As far as I've heard, he's recovering fine. There hasn't been a setback. But one thing that's been a little bit difficult in the last couple months is our ability to oversee those things as much as you might normally would. So I imagine at some point when we all collectively get together, I can also answer that better, or would hope to answer that better, as to he's been doing. I mean, I think what people really want to know is, has he been playing, and what's he look like? And that's really the answer to 100%. And we won't know that until we kind of reach that point in time.
Hi, Bob. This is Wes Goldberg. In regards to the draft, do you guys have indication if they're going to restart, or if they're going to hold some sort of draft combine for you guys, either maybe virtual or something like that, in a way that you guys can acquire some medical records and some physical testing?
Yeah, I know what you know, which is what you've read. Again, I think the league, rightly so, first had to decide how they wanted to move forward with the rest of this season and the playoffs, which they've done. And I think they still have some things to kind of iron out. But then it would be probably in order, the next other 8 teams, what would we be allowed to do with a season that was cut short? And then maybe in conjunction with that, or at the same time or shortly thereafter, it's draft. And I think the league sounds like is hopeful to be able to possibly something, but I haven't heard anything more than what I've read, and I'm sure you've read.
Bob, this is Connor Letourneau, San Francisco Chronicle. With the season officially over for you guys, how would you characterize it? What were kind of your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it a lot of different ways. I mean, the obvious way is we had the worst record in the NBA, and we got to own that. You can't run from that. I can give you reasons, which you were at all our games, so you know them already. And those things usually fall flat. Most of the time you're judged on your record, and we were 15-50, which is nothing to be proud of. So watching our team lose 50 times was no fun for me or anybody that was competitive, our coaches, our players. There was moments in time where we had to make decisions to help solidify our future in regards to letting some guys go that had been good for us that were difficult. I probably learned more this season than I have in the last 5, as far as how to approach things, how to do things, what I think we need to do better. I think losing helps that. Ironically, the more adversity or failure you face, the more you examine your process. When you win, it does cover up quite a bit. So also learning to protect who we are, our culture. Losing usually brings out, and not fall apart, derail in a season where we were the worst record in the league is good. It's a good thing that we were able to hold our culture and our relationships and the fabric of our team together. So I'm proud of that, but we have to be clearly better. We have to be better record-wise. We have to be better, to a better team. So a lot to learn. I have, like I said, mixed emotions, but usually when you have a record like that, you can't really feel that good about it.
When it was like late in the season, you guys did a press conference, and part of it, I think it was post trade deadline. Part of it you talked about was ducking under the tax so you could spend pretty big this summer. The financial landscape has obviously changed. Do you have a firm read from ownership of the group right now that you can't spend?
I lost you there for a second. I lost the second part of your question. You talked about I talked about getting under the tax and how that was important, and then I missed the second. I got cut off or something.
Yeah, the expectation then was that it was so you guys could spend big this summer. Do you still get the sense from ownership that it will be allowed that you can spend all you want, $17.2 million, exception and all that?
I don't know. I mean, I think depending on the economics, we have to be smart and pragmatic. If something makes sense, I can only look at past history where Joe has always been receptive to spending if it helped us win. We're in a very unique situation now. I have no idea what the future holds as far as some of the parameters of that stuff. But I do know that we have an ownership group that's aggressive and always seems to push the limits. So resources have always been a huge positive in our organization. But I don't know what it's going to look like. But it's a nice thing to have. And again, I only know what I've seen and have been around, which is we've been spending a lot in the past, which I'm fortunate to be in the position I am in with ownership that will spend on a roster like Joe and Peter and the rest of the owners have. But I can't fully answer what it's going to look like as far as will we do that or not. I'll have to, as it gets closer and we're more clear on things, be able to answer that better.
Hey, Bob, it's Mark Medina here with USA Today. I hope you and yours are hanging in there during these tough times.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering, just obviously your perspective as a white person, given the racial makeup of all NBA teams and the fact that, a lot of players on the Warriors have been outspoken about different racial issues over the years. What have you learned during those times, and what do you think you have learned during this whole tragedy involving George Floyd and, the protests that have followed?
Well, I started probably learning about my own kind of lack of understanding when I got to college. I mean, it wasn't just an awareness of all that I wasn't. I was lucky to be, and I say lucky, when I was at UCLA, there was only a couple white guys. So I was fortunate to find great friendships with a lot of African-American guys that are still friends today. And I think you've arrived racially in some sense when you walk in a room and you don't know that you're the only white guy in there. If you can get to that point in life, I think you're heading in the right direction. When you don't feel that, because I think there's barriers that exist, and unfortunately we all have to do a better job. But it starts with friendship. It starts with association. It starts with listening. And for me, like I said, thank God that I work in the industry that I do, that I get to talk to players about their perspective. And I understand what I don't understand. I don't pretend to understand things that I can never understand certain things, but it doesn't mean I won't listen and I won't try. Really around some great leaders in this area, like Andre Iguodala and David West. I've had some fantastic conversations about social issues and race issues with a lot of our players. Draymond and I talk all the time. I mean, how I was raised and how he was raised is almost the antithesis. And I wish wish that he had a much tougher upbringing, obviously, but I wanted, I always would leave saying, what if I had grown up like they did and had the same childhood? Would I be in here? I bet if they grew up the way I did, they wouldn't be. So there's all these times of life, but I never feel like I have it all. That's what life is. Every day you're supposed to go wiser and a little more mature and a little smarter, a little more aware. And it's an everyday thing. It's not, you don't ever finish this test. You don't ever have full understanding. And so for me, like I said, I am grateful. One of my favorite parts of work is that it's so diverse. I really love the diversity of the environment. You guys are around our team and our coaches and our players, and it's an environment that I think is helpful when you talk about these things and what's going on in our society. You'd like to see more of that, really. I think it would be helpful.
Bob, in the past, there's been times where you basically had 10 days, 14 days, from finals run, kind of trying to absorb that to draft free agency. Right now, it's probably going to end up being about 9 months or so from your last game. How will that change for you? How will that be helpful? You got an unbelievable amount of prep time for the summer, and also I don't know, is it tough that it's so far away and you kind of have to sit there and wait this far long?
Well, it's better than a week, I'll say that. It's better to have this much time than we had previously, but it's also a higher pick now that we know we're going to be a top 5 pick. I don't know what it'll be, but I know it'll be in the top 5. That's a much different type of equation than whatever pick we've had. 7 was the highest one, or 8. So it's different. We had this a little bit in 2012. We had 7 and 30 or 35 or 52 or something. But the difficult part, Anthony, is that there's not a lot of, you can watch film all day long, and we've been able to do that and talk and look at the analytics, but there's still some missing pieces that you'd love to get to see, whether that's talking to somebody in person or watching them in person. Usually they visit your facilities. When you pick a player in the top 5, you get to see them. We don't know. And so, yes, the time and the runway is long, but it depends on what you get to do in that amount of time that makes you feel the most prepared. Film is fine up to a certain degree. It's just like if you were hiring somebody to work with you and you watch them interview people, you'd also want to talk to them in person. It's just part of the process when you make decisions like this. So we'll see. I'm hopeful we'll get some opportunity like that. But again, I guess I would say it's.
Anything? Any other questions?
I think he was still answering, but he dropped off.
No, I'm here. I'm done answering that one. Yeah, I didn't leave.
Bob, Marcus Thompson with The Athletic. I just wanted to confirm you are indeed white, right?
I got a little, I don't know what white is. I'm definitely white, but the degree of white, I got a little Armenian in there. Yeah, that's definitely, no. I've never done one of those, what do you call those ancestor tests? As far as I know, I'm pretty white, man. I'm pretty white. Yep.
You've had, this conversation that the nation is having has cropped up in your locker room a lot. You've had players like Andre Iguodala, who's not shy of saying things. And how has all of that in the locker room you've had either prepared you for what's happening or kind of preempted what has happened?
Like I said, I think we have a responsibility. I think that one of the best things you can do in life is try. We don't do a good job of this. I don't think society is. We don't often look at things from someone else's perspective. Most of the decisions we make in life are whatever's best for us, we do. Whatever doesn't affect us, we don't worry about. I think that's irresponsible. And so whether it's a discussion with a player like Andre, you have to have curiosity in life. You have to try to understand. And for me, it's educational. I like learning. I like trying to see something from a different angle. And, you and I have had discussions. You went to Oakland Tech. we played Oakland Tech when I was in high school. I mean, I'd ask you what it was like to go to Oakland Tech, and you'd ask me what it was like to go to Monte Vista. Completely different experiences. But I'm interested. I'm interested to know what that was like, and it does two things. It shows me that I should be thankful for what I have, and it also shows me I should have an awareness that not everybody's afforded the same opportunities in life, and how can we work to even that out? Everybody, not it can't can't just be one segment of society trying to better that. Everybody needs to help each other. So for me, I love Marcus. I love the individual. I can read a story about somebody, something that happened to somebody, but I always prefer somebody that I actually try to get to know and have a daily dialogue with about these things, because those are the things that I think last longer, are the relationships you build where it's just part of your relationship. It's part of the discussions you have with someone. And even you and I, we've had a lot of conversations about these things, but not because what happened with George Floyd didn't just start. I didn't just call you and say, hey, what do you think? We've talked about this stuff for 7 or 8 years. Because for one, you sense an audience that's willing, or at least, I think. And for me, I have a sense of, I want to see what I can do. How can I help? When we went to San Quentin, I never understood. I mean, for me, San Quentin has this kind of mythical thing about it. Like, you got to go to San Quentin. So I understood why I was going the first time. I wanted to go play basketball, and I wanted to go see what San Quentin was like. And that's the truth. And then when I was leaving the first time, and by the way, every player and every coach and the referees and the announcers were all African American. So there's no white competition. But when I was leaving, they were all saying, thanks for coming. And I was kind of thinking, why would they thank me for coming? But what it showed them was that they mattered. They're prisoners in a maximum security prison, and people that have wealth or have a stable life, and we'll come and see them and support them. And I started realizing another learning lesson was kind of like, you got to show up, you got to try. And some of those guys I've run into, and I'll be walking down the street when Nate Thurman had his funeral. I think it was in South San Francisco. I parked my car in front of a soul food restaurant, and I was walking across the street, and some guy said, "Hey, what's up?" I didn't recognize him. He said, "I know you from San Quentin." And if you would have asked me when I was growing up white in Danville, if I'd know somebody that would recognize me in the street and say, I met you in San Quentin. I mean, but those are the life experiences that we all need. We got to get a little uncomfortable. You got to put yourself out there a little bit. So I stopped and talked to the guy and said, congratulations on getting out, and talked about what do they do with prisoners when you get out of San Quentin. And that's a whole other conversation. But it's a willingness to kind of understand that people are people. We all can get unlucky or lucky. And basketball, whether that's being around our players or whatever it's given me in life, it's definitely been in that capacity, especially Marcus. It's been educational and informative and gratifying to kind of step outside of what I knew for much of my young life, which wasn't life. That's not real life, So that's how I look at it.
Great. Do we have one last question for Bob, or is that it?
Bob, how substantially do you think the CBA might be changed before the offseason?
I don't know, Anthony. I don't know. To be determined on everything like that. I think the league, and we'll talk to the union, but again, I don't have any information. I don't have any more information than you do. Seems like both the union and the league did a great job of collaborating on return to play. And so they've seemed to have formed a good partnership. So I'm confident they'll figure out the right thing for everybody.